Kim. Today is July 23rd, 363 days since my mental health crisis. And I want to do a sound check because I have some things to say. So the day is Tuesday, the day of the week. And I have really been trying to think about how I wanted to commemorate, honor, reflect, um, think about the past year, how I wanted to frame it, um, and just what life is like, I guess, on this side of a life crisis. Um, It's really interesting because I think you spend the first bit of time, of course, trying to figure out what happened and how you are supposed to show up. And then there's a point where you try to like get everything back to normal. And kind of like just my old life. Like, let me just, I used to do it this way, I used to do it that way. And then there's a point where you realize that isn't quite working. So then there's some frustration, there's some confusion, there's some withdrawing because, like, how do you figure this all out? Um, at least for me, I'm the type of person where I can't have too much sensory things going on when I'm trying to figure out what's happening. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's complex. It is layered. It is a lot. Um, but it's also can be a beautiful process. And I don't want to fancify it or like pour sugar on it or anything like that. But what I can say is that I feel more like myself than I've ever felt like myself ever. Um, I feel more in tune with my voice, with my body, with what I will and will not accept in my life. Um, I feel zero pressure to perform on most days. Those pressures definitely kind of still creep in when I choose to interact with certain people that I may not know necessarily. Um, but I am having more of a command on this is who I am and this is what you're going to get if you asked for me. And it's interesting because I'm seeing it happening all over the internet with various people. For instance, Amanda Seals is someone who she just I think is dropping an episode of talking about divesting from celebrity. Um, and a part of I think like this great awakening, one of it is having access to information. Right, so we have access to a whole lot more information now, and I think what many of us are discovering is that we are neurodivergent, neurospicy, and have been trying to fit into this um unrealistic fantasized box of productivity and consumption. And specifically for us as Black women, we um, we experience that a lot. And it's interesting because, just for history's sake, Joe Biden, who is the current president of the United States, stepped down from running for another term and threw his endorsement behind the current vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, who is a Black and Asian woman, Jamaican and Indian heritage, India, the country, India. Um, and it's been interesting to watch the series of events that are unfolding right now. Um, and as a Black woman who has lived in the United States, it's really, really wild to watch the unfolding of white supremacy culture, if you will, because that's really what it is. Um, and it's really made me think about myself and my journey and what I have talked about, what I haven't talked about, what I started talking about, the people that wanted me to absolutely stop talking about. It's wild. Like, it's really wild, and it's a lot to process, and it's a lot to even understand. And when you start to talk about it, because many people live in this fanciful idea of the United States, and it's weird. It's really weird how some people look at the US through rose-colored glasses. Um, and I can say it's weird because I also used to look at the US through rose-colored glasses. Um, so it's kind of interesting being outside of the matrix and seeing this happening, and also contending with the lived experience that I have and why I don't live in the United States anymore. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot to process, and it's really made me think about what and how I wanted to honor and acknowledge what I have been living through, and how I wanted to come back and take my voice back, if you will. I chose silence in 2022. The block was hot. Let me just say the block was hot. Them good people in Pennsylvania, baby, when I tell you they wanted me to shut my ass up. They got videos taken down. Um they were really, really, really pissed. And around that time, oh, and let me just go on the record and saying that I have signed no non-disclosure agreements, none of that. Okay, so I have every right to say everything that happened, anything that was recorded, every person that was there agreed to be recorded. Okay, um, so, but they was pissed. They were really, really pissed. And around that time, I decided to leave Mexico and also move here to Colombia. So that was another transition that um, kind of paused my talking about what happened. And, I got settled here in Colombia, and 2023 started out phenomenally. I put my focus on my life coaching curriculum and my class of life coaches that ultimately graduated in June of 2023. 5 new intuitive melanated life coaches who are all um, figuring out their same path. And it's been beautiful watching them really hone in on their zones of genius. Um, it's been really beautiful, and we should probably do like a reunion or something to catch up and talk. But anyway, for the first half of 2023, I was really immersed in the life coaching curriculum. Um, and that ended June 3rd. And at that time, a couple days later, I got an invitation to interview Dr. Joy Harden Bradford from Therapy for Black Girls. She wrote a new book called Sisterhood Heals. This is not sponsored, but also that book is so good. Like, so good. It really is a tool and instrument of healing. And so anyways, so I got that opportunity to go back to the US to interview Dr. Joy. And I spent some time in Miami because that is where the fireside chat was. And I was reintroduced to the United States and the ugliness of the United States, the bias of the United States, the inaccessibility of the United States, the individualism and the xenophobia of the U.S. I was just all smack dab in my face, okay? And it was a lot. It was a lot to process, and I did some things and recorded some lives while I was there because it was really a lot. And then I left Miami and I went to St. Martin in the French Caribbean to hang out with the beautiful brown girls, and it was a beautiful trip. I still haven't shared any of those pictures because right after that, I had a life crisis. And I asked my psychologist the other day, I was like, what do I call this? Because I'm about to start talking about it, and what do I call it? So she was like, well, it was so layered. You just really have to call it a life crisis. And the way that she described it was, it started with PTSD triggering. Then there was the layer of burnout, right? So having been burning the candle at both ends since ever, as well as an identity crisis in many ways, because since then I have been accepted the understanding that I live with ADHD, PTSD, depression, anxiety, OCD, and autism. And that is like really world shifting because you have to kind of process that, right? So for context, I'm 43. Always was high achieving, like all of that, right? And I've talked about this somewhere before that my idea of autism was, it was on the podcast with my cousins. So you don't put syrup on your grilled cheese, which you can find right here on Mind of My Black Ass Business. And yes, that was a commercial. But anyway, Kalanda and I were talking about how there are like so many realizations that you have about how you've always viewed the world, or how people have always told you that you were wrong, or like you got in trouble for things that were actually following the rules, or you didn't follow the rules because the rule was stupid, or like you made up a new rule so that you wouldn't get in trouble for that rule, because what the fuck do you want from me, right? So we've kind of been unpacking that because she's also come to that understanding that she's also neurodivergent. So on our podcast, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So this identity crisis layer is very interesting because you realize that you've spent your entire life being someone that somebody told you to be, but not who you actually ever wanted to be. I remember when I was a child, I had like 5 or 6 jobs that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a dancer and dance. Okay. So I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a dance teacher on the weekends, but I also wanted to be a dancer. And I wanted to be an actress. And of all of that was heard, doctor was like, this is your path and this is where you're gonna go. I remember telling my mom about all these jobs that I wanted to have because I used to dance. I started dancing when I was 2. And I had to stop official dance lessons when my brother was born because we didn't have any money, but I was always a dancer. So it was always something I wanted to do. I also used to love to sing. I always loved to perform. My cousins and I tell a story about when I was, we spent a summer with my grandmother when I was 5 turning 6. So Kalanda would have been 7 or 6 turning 7. We're like a year and a half apart. And then Casey would have been turning 5 maybe because she's 9 months behind me, right? So it was the 3 of us, and then we had another cousin, and we spent the summer with our grandmother. And it's like the most memorable summer that we ever had. It's one of the only memories that the 3 of us one of the I don't even know how to describe it. It's a foundational memory. And it's it's a unique memory that just like the 3 of us have. And what's so interesting, we had another cousin there, and I wonder what it was like for her because we weren't really allowed to have a relationship with her growing up. That would be an interesting question. I wonder. I might ask her. But anyway, so that summer, the greatest love of all was out by Whitney Houston. I Believe That Children Are the Future. And it was and is one of my favorite songs. And I would stand on top of the table and perform. I would start in the house, and then my grandmother would ultimately be like, go outside with all that noise. And then I would stand on top of the picnic table and I would have a performance. And that's just always who I was. But out of all of those things that I wanted to do when I grew up, doctor was the one that made the most sense. It's the one that made money, right? Who actually makes a living being a creative. So I was geared towards being a doctor. And I like science, and science is cool. And I taught science when I first started teaching. I taught science for 6 years, and I must say I am a stellar science teacher. Okay, but the path was never to really be a doctor. And of course, hindsight is 2020, right? And I now know and can see where God was like, hey, yeah, I just needed you to get this stuff right here, but that's not what we doing, because I was in the journey. But in hindsight, looking back, I can see that I needed that foundation to be able to understand all the things that I do today when it comes to talking about healing and healing trauma and healing from burnout. And it's interesting to see a bunch of pieces that seem to be very disconnected still come together within the plan, as well as to meet myself for the first time. Um, it's interesting. It's been an interesting process. And it's weird because so much has happened over this past year. So much. So much has happened. And I don't think I have processed it. You know, I've just been living um, and surviving. So I told myself I wanted to carve out these days to process what happened and really think about the lessons and um, the growth, think about, most importantly, the fact that I'm still here. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was really a lot. And I'm really proud of myself that I was able to hold on. Um, I do believe that we choose our life before we enter our life. Um, and I think I kind of kept that like in the back of my mind a lot. Like, I wouldn't choose this life if there wasn't something beautiful at the end. I know that much about myself. So it really made me, I guess I just kind of like downshifted into um like cruise kind of for the most part. So that, and I don't know how to drive a six, so also I don't even know if that's correct. Okay, I don't know if that's correct lingo. Tell me in the comments. But yeah, I feel like I kind of had to like downshift into my survival brain. And my psychologist was telling me the other day, she's like, you finally have a chance to breathe. Like, I finally am at a place, at least for a couple of months, where I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay the rent. I don't have to um, obsess in my brain constantly. You got to figure something out. You got to figure something out. You got to do something. You got to be okay so you can have a class so that you can get money. You got to do something. Do something. Like, that's what I feel like my life has been like for the entire past year. Definitely since October when I had the realization that the money was gone. I was like, hey, I ain't gonna make it past December. Like, 6 months was all I had. Okay, the money is finna be gone. Um, so for the past 6 months, definitely I have been just spinning wheels and just trying to stay afloat. Um, and I want to just float for a minute. I want to just float. I want to be able to just float for a moment. I want to be able to not have to do anything, not have to be available, not have to go and like I just want a moment. Um Hold on, I just remembered something. So I just remembered that I ordered some things to start gardening today. So that's going to be my project. I am choosing to reflect through growing and literally growing. Um, so I ordered some seeds and I ordered some dirt and I'm gonna do some planting because my spirit feels like it needs to watch growth happen. Um, and I feel like there's a lesson that I'm supposed to get out of cultivating. So many of some of my favorite people have really gotten into gardening and growing, and I'm really looking forward to having conversations with them about it because it is it's beautiful to watch the connecting back to ancestral practices. And that summer with my grandmother that I was talking about, one of the things I remember is that she was growing things. I remember us eating fruit off of like berries off of the vine, and um, I remember like what do you call it? Shucking corn and peeling split peas, and like I remember like doing those things. And I thought that growing stuff was a gift that I didn't have. My mother also always had plants and eventually started growing her own food, but she never like really talked to me about it. And a long time I rejected that part of her because not that it was a lot or anything like that, but it was just kind of like, I don't know. There's a lot there. I remember this one time my boyfriend and I redid the entire front garden for my mom for Mother's Day, and wasn't she wasn't mad about it, but she wasn't like as happy as I thought she was gonna be. So it didn't keep me safe for too long. But I remember giving that gift because she loved plants. But now I see myself in that, and I'm embracing that. And it's exciting to watch growth happen. It's exciting to see things, roots grow, and to see new leaves and all of that. So that is one of the things that I'm going to do this week. And the other that I want to do is I want to paint. I haven't painted anything since I left Florida. And I miss it. I really, really used to enjoy painting. And there is some wall space here that I think I can use. Um, so, yeah, I want to create. I want to float. I want to just be. And I'm giving myself the gift of doing that this week. And that is how I am honoring what my journey has been like over the past year. So, from time to time, I will be recording different thoughts and uploading those thoughts and maybe even liking some comments. But as far as being readily available, not so much because I really want to give my brain a chance to float. So that is all for now. Thank you for holding space and being along on this journey with me. I do ask you to invite others. Every share helps, every subscriber helps. I'm on my way to getting the channel monetized. So, right now, I think I looked yesterday, we were at like 551 subscribers, and the next goal is 1,000 subscribers. So I'm going to do my part in doing the creating, and I'm asking you all to do your part in sharing and amplifying my story and subscribing. Um, it really, really, really helps, and it is a free way that can really support me. So I have all kinds of ideas too that I want to share. They will definitely first go into my Patreon. So if you are like, I want to be in the know, I want the things and all that kind of stuff, go to Minding My Black Ass Business on Patreon. And that is how you will know the things ahead of time, because that's where I'll always release things first. But I do have some really big ideas that are coming up. I have a couple new podcast ideas that I will be launching, and I feel like it's a really good season, and I am grateful that I'm here to see it and that I get to share it with the world and to unpack it with you all. So, I'm gonna go and eat, and I'll check in later. Bye for now.